Hey, good morning, folks. We are going to get into the page layouts and dressing for the upcoming Spelljammer Combat and Exploration supplement that we'll be publishing on DMsGuild as soon as it's done. Give me a hot second here for me to check my signals, make sure everything's coming through clear. I'll go through my spiel and then we'll get into this. So we'll get into this. Sounds like the signal's clear. I'm going to punch my signal here a bit. If you follow me on Twitter, I've just posted that I'm live on Twitter. So be welcome to follow me at Phil Kearney, and you can find out when I'm live in the future. Hey, Mikey. Good morning. Nice to meet you. I'm going to hit my Discord channels here real fast just to let folks know that I'm up and running, and that'll take me less than a minute. And then we'll make this happen. So my name's Phil. I create TTRPG PDFs. I've been focusing on 5e Dungeons and Dragons. This supplement for Spelljammer is another example, but there's a lot of works that you can view online already in the description down below. Click the DMsGuild link. All the stuff that I put on DMsGuild is 100% free preview. So if you're on a mobile phone, you can click the eye icon off to the right. Or if you're using a desktop or a tablet, you can go into any one of those books that I have there. And underneath the cover, it'll say full preview. You can click on that. And in any case, these things allow you to download a document, a PDF, to take a look at the content that we have. There's about 120 different illustrations that we've produced between those different pieces. So if there's anything there that's catching your eye, certainly encourage you to purchase it to help offset some of the time that it takes to build these things. And if not, then just enjoy it and see what it is so you have an idea of what it is that we get into. So, like, subscribe, bell, all the things that we do to make sure the algorithms work for us. We built this cover like around, I want to say around episode 15 or so, as well as we've been generating various ship tokens for use with the combat system that we've developed. These are 50-foot squares that we have on a dogfighting grid. There are 5-foot scale for when you're on the actual deck of the ship to combat using the different floor plans that were provided for us by Wizards of the Coast. You can either grab the second edition stuff online, or you can grab Spelljammer's Adventures in Space off of the D&D Beyond websites, or you can buy them hardback at your local bookstores. Support your local bookstores. So we don't have anything that scales out to the 50-foot scale, and then kind of like a pixie, tiny-sized creature in a dungeon. These could scale out so that this is a 500-foot square if you wanted to, so that you can have your ships navigating through space at the 500-foot scale or 5,000-foot scale, which is also known as a mile. 10 miles, 100 miles, 1,000 miles, and ships in Spelljammer can't get beyond 10,000 miles per round, because then it extends to 100,000 miles per minute, and then it extends to 1 million miles per 10 minutes, and then it extends to 10 million miles per 2 hours, and then it extends to 100 million miles per 24 hours. The math's not perfect, but it scales really well. We've been using that scaling mechanics for the past year now, both here in the Spelljammer playtesting that we've done, as well as the Descent into Avernus Infernal War Machine playtesting that we've done. The Infernal War Machines is the foundation for the vehicle mechanics that we had initially developed for this. And those are trucks that are basically anywhere from 10 to 40 feet, 10 to 20 feet in scale, using what's in the Descent into Avernus book. But we created a scaling system that allows you to use vehicles at the 50-foot scale, like we were demonstrating here with tokens. A Devil's Ride would easily fit inside a 50-foot scale. A Tormentor, a Devil Grinder, those would all fit in these 50-foot scales. Kind of like how this ship can fit in a 500-foot square. So all the mechanics scale as such. So we've got this currently it's 104 pages of document. We're going to use Word I have access to Word for free because of my day job. I have licenses for Microsoft, so it's easy for me to use them. I don't have to pay a monthly subscription for it. It's just mine. So all the books that were down in the description, those are all used, all made using Word as well. So Word is a pretty versatile program that we can do things with. Like we can move this plate aside, and you got the plain text here. So we can take plates like this and we can drop images into them. We can also drop chunks of text into these little these little text boxes, as it were, and then we can move the text to a specific position on the page. We can do that with images, we can do that with words, and we can do that with tables. So I'm going to set up, first make sure that we're looking okay here. Yeah, we're looking okay here. Cool. So there's a few different things that we need here. Let's revel in the glory of really just panning out and looking at the amount of documentation that we have here. So here's your cover page here. And like I said, we got about 102 pages. So we go through the changes that we make to equipment to use the combat and exploration system that we have with 5e as its base foundation. So we got our table of contents, introduction, splash. We'll have a splash image there, and then we just go through basically the basic changes that we make to how helms work, different devices that you can use in Spelljammer, and then we get into vehicle stuff, the different scaling of like how hit points work, how material. Here we can zoom in. We got materials and how materials impact the bonuses, armor class, and the damage threshold that vehicles will have based on what materials they use. The material also impacts how much weight a ship, like the actual size of the ship, is a function of how much weight in tons a ship can carry. The ship itself has a weight that has to be carried as well, that is measured in 5-foot steps per ton. This is all based off of actual caravans and caravels that I did some research online about, like how large are these objects by size, and how much weight does the wood itself of these boats weigh, and how much cargo on top of that can these boats carry before they sink. And the answer is massive. So the amount of weight that Spelljammer ships are able to carry, as expressed in the Spelljammer book here, it's significantly higher than could actually be done. So we were able just to find some very sensible metrics to be able to measure the weight of the ship versus how much it can actually carry that equals the cargo. And then we scaled out the towing capacity, which is like dragging. If you're a 5-foot medium-sized person, you can drag stuff with you. So that's basically dragging things behind you, is basically towing. So we get the towing mechanics of how much you can carry when you tow. And then we have a quick breakdown here of how that math would look like on, say, a star moth that has a wealthy lifestyle bestowed upon the crew while they are aboard ship. Because you don't want things to be Spartan when you're stuck in a tin can. You want to have some really posh environment to make you feel like you're actually more on vacation than the barracks that you would stay at home. If you want people on a ship, make being on that ship a better lifestyle than what they have at home. They will be eager to jump aboard your craft. And then we got all the pre-generated stuff. Hey, Hornetica, we got the pre-generated stats for all the different ships that already exist inside of Spelljammer Adventures in Space in 5e. We have the fighter craft that we've created, which are the small ships that are basically like infernal war machines, that are anywhere from 10 to 50 feet in scale, and then you scale up from 50 feet to 500 feet for like actual Spelljamming vessels. So you got craft, which are 50 feet or smaller, and you have vessels, which are larger than 50 feet. Like the Scorpion ship, for instance, I think is the smallest craft. The smallest ship, yeah. A Scorpion is only 75 feet long, but it still occupies a 10 by 10, a 2 by 2 square space, which is 50 feet a pop. So a Scorpion occupies a 100-foot space. So anyway, so we're breaking down the different sections that are in the book. So we got the vehicle stuff. We got the basic equipment to use on a Spelljammer and to operate a Spelljammer. You got how Spelljammers themselves work, After we get done, then of course like repair, all the bits that go along with having a ship. And then once we're done with ship, we get into combat. It talks about all the like the relative speeds, the distancing, rate of fire, how to command different crews, how to command squadrons of ships, all that bloody blah. And then at the end of combat is the spell casting section, where we look at how spells upcast and how you can amplify them to affect a larger area, so that you can effectively lob spells between ships at the 500-foot scale, 1 mile scale. And after we get through the basic amplification mechanics, then we get into the exploration system, which is how to see close distance and interact with objects in space. Collisions, objects in space that are massive, that are hitting each other, how much damage can, like if a moon hits a planet, that planet is going to be damaged, and the moon is going to be really damaged. So we have mechanics about these massive objects in space colliding. What does that mean to like characters that are falling? The difference between planar gravity versus spherical gravity, atmosphere, escaping orbit of a ship, yada yada yada. All the bits and pieces that make it work, like interacting with astral space versus astral sea versus wild space, all those bits. And after we get through all that, then we've got the creature catalog, converting Boo's Menagerie into this scaling combat system so that you can interact with massive sized creatures. Like the spell jamming ship itself is 3 miles long, so if you scale things out, we'll have an opportunity to look at that with Light of Zaraxis in Appendix 2. But after we get through critters, then we have the random system generator that we produced that uses the scaling system. And then after the random system generator is the conversion of Light of Zaraxis using all of these mechanics. So if you want to play Light of Zaraxis and you want to have more ship combat, more exploration stuff, you can integrate these mechanics into Light of Zaraxis so that you can play outside the box that they built for you. So that's the ideas. So it's a total of right now it's sitting at 101 pages. That's before any dressing, cleanup, illustrations, and charting occurs. So it would not surprise me if this thing ends up being 120 pages. We'll see. We'll see how it actually pans out. So some things that I want to start making a list over here so you guys know what our agenda is, right? So we got a raw manuscript document. I've just basically dropped it out of Google Docs where my editor built. Adam Hancock's our editor. We had a separate Google Doc from the playtesting stuff that we had done. So he then did all the fixing between Ukulele Bard, Joseph Vargas, and I. We cleaned up all the logic issues that Adam detected during the editing process. Built the thing pretty sleek. Now we've taken that manuscript from the post-edit manuscript. We've now dropped it into Photoshop. We're using a letterhead size 8.5 inches wide by 11 inches tall. We've got a 1/2 inch border on the sides, and we have a 1/2 inch border at the top, on the sides. Here, let's pull open the layout. Margins currently equal. Top is 0.5 inches, bottom is 0.75 inches, left and right are 0.5 inches. So we have a large active space, basically 10.25 inches of vertical space and 8 inches worth of horizontal space. The intention is, well, we've got, let's do something like this. So we got like the ship rolls chart that eats, and we can actually fit the ship rolls chart onto a single page. So when we build this thing, we'll, like for instance, want to make sure that this ship rolls page sits on a single page that we can then have as a separate single page tear out that we can put into basically a quick stat book, right? So it's easy for you. And of course the ship rolls that we have, processes, rounds of combat, the same as we would process a round of combat in a dungeon at the 5-foot scale. So it doesn't matter what scale of combat you're operating in, 5 feet with people on deck with you, 50 feet dogfighting with fighter craft and close range with vessels, or 500-foot scale squares where you're dealing specifically with ranged siege weapons at extreme ranges, as well as amplified spells to still be able to lob magic back and forth between ships. And then it scales out, anything that scales out beyond 500 feet. It doesn't change the grid at that point, because weapons can't really effectively target and attack each other if they're aware of each other beyond a mile. Like the expression "saw it coming from a mile away" has legitimate weight in that if a boulder is being thrown at you for over a mile, it's going to take a while to reach you. If you're aware of it, you can just get out of the way and it'll miss you. So if you're attacking something, and we talk about all that in here, if you're trying to attack something that's over a mile away, then it's going to be a disadvantage. So it's already going to be a disadvantage because it's already beyond your far range reach. So it stays at disadvantage. But if they're aware of it, the shots automatically miss if the target just chooses to slide aside. So you have that basically at the 500-foot scale. You've got 10 squares till you get to 1 mile. And then if you're scaling out beyond that, so each square is 1 mile, if you're adjacent to another ship, if they're aware of you at that scale, then you're automatically going to miss. You have to close in distance so you actually have a chance of being able to tag something. So if you scale out to 1 mile or larger squares, now you're dealing with ship pursuits and chases, which we have mechanics for in the exploration section. So it's just a logical progression of different mechanical systems and subsystems that don't exist inside of 5e as presented, but greatly simplify the mechanics that are in 2nd edition. So it's not so wonky, and you'll see all that as we get into it. But the ship rolls of an action, bonus action, reaction, object interaction, and verbal commands, those all come into play depending on what role you're playing on the ship, as the pilot, as the siege commander, as a squadron commander, or as a ship support. You've got your object interactions to actually pilot vehicles either in the helm or with your orrery. You've got verbal commands to take command of siege weapons and ships to then command them as a squadron. Got a ton of actions, movement, attacking, all the stuff that you would expect there. And then attack actions themselves as either ship melee attacks or ranged weapon attacks, depending on what role you're playing and what weapons you have equipped. And then bonus actions provide alternate stuff, and then reactions are reactions like dodge and stuff like that. Well, not dodge specifically, but stuff like that. Anyway, so we want to make sure that we're sizing things so that they fit on a page. So we have a few different things that we need to do. One, we need to determine font size for body text and headers and subheaders. Body text and subheaders. 2, we need to determine font color for body text and subheaders. 3, we need background texture image. 4, we need page dressing. You know what? I think I can pull up a reference, something else that we've worked with. Let's see. I think I want to use the color. I think I want to use the font colors from Pacts and Patrons of Ravnica. So I am going to grab PPR. I'm going to grab the PPR Word doc, and I hope it doesn't melt my computer for having so much wordage open. Hey, welcome back, Phil. So again, we built this. We also built this in Word. So here's how. I think there's a link to Pacts and Patrons down below in the DMsGuild links down below. I believe you can see the final product for this. But here's the full book. It's like 20 some odd pages, I think. It's 33 pages. So we have the cover, table of contents. And this book is about warlocks, Ravnica warlocks. It's about each guild, each of the 10 guilds in Ravnica being its own otherworldly patron for a guild mage warlock to basically join the guild pact as a representative of their guild. But we're not talking about Ravnica specifically, but it is super relevant to the conversation because you can see that we got the cover that we built, and we have our table, and you have to see that this isn't just black text that we're working with. This is what this is what we mean as page dressing, these objects and shapes. And you can see like you can see the number. We have number stamps as separate objects that we then slide into position, and this itself is its own page layout. So when we grab it and we can drag it around, right, you can see that there's a color that textures with this thing. Hold on. There you go. You can see a color. You can see that the image here that goes up in the corner. You can see that that is fused with the text that goes into here, and then you can see that I can flip the image so that I have page numbers down on this side versus page numbers on this side, which go with here. So we'll have to build. These are all. This is called page dressing. So we'll build these page dressings. Let's get everything back in position. You can see here that this is one of those text boxes I was talking about. And here I can just line up the title text that I want, and then I can align text underneath it where I please. And then you see that all the edges line up, so it's super easy to be able to just put text where you want it as long as you're lining it up with other objects. All these are basically the same way. So you got all the page stuff. I fuse when we finish the page layout, I know that where the text is going to sit on the page, so that means I know where the gaps in the page are at that I can then create illustrations for. So once we finish the page layout process, we'll be able to take all the spots that get opened up in the document, and like if this was a legit spot and if this was a legit spot here, I could then take these individual pages as PDFs and then drop them into Photoshop and just paint directly on the page. If you look at my playlists, the Elemental Key playlist that we have on my channel is it looks at extracting the page. If you in the description down below in the DMsGuild pack, there's Elemental Key, which is basically the Way of the Monk 4 elements, where it's actually like air bending, like it assigns air as one of its. You create air key that you can then bend to manipulate air stuff. You have fire key that you can devote your key to, so that you can fire bend. You could, if you're the avatar, or if there's multiple avatars in your campaign, you could have both air, fire, earth, and water all distributed amongst your key to do different elemental stuff depending on what key you burn. So you can see that process of me taking that text and then dropping it into Photoshop and then painting into the gaps illustrations that are relevant to the material that's on that specific page. So all the illustrations that we're going to do here will be custom built specifically for the book that will be relevant to whatever's on that page. So that's the process that we're going to go through. So we'll need to figure out the page dressing, which is headers, borders, and footers. Borders are the side rails, headers are at the top of the page, and then footers are at the bottom of the page, like where your page number is at, like your page number framing. Header is like title, section title framing, and then the rails on the side is just borders for you to put something cute and fancy in there. And then I think we have like the background itself is probably just going to be a color fade. Once we get the page dressing figured out, determine font size, font colors, background, page dressing, borders. So that should be sufficient for us. That should be everything, I believe, That's all the components. So everything in the document currently is just black. So what I'm going to do is we are going to jump in and convert the font colors of this probably over to this is like a much more relaxed view, I believe. The text color I think is relaxing and not overly too much contrast between text and background actually fatigues the eye. So if you have a more faded effect so that it's easy for your eye to drift onto and off of blocks of text, that makes it much more relaxing for your eye. Oh, the other thing that we have to do, right? We have to build charts, tables. Build tables through Excel into objects in the Word doc. Which one I was saying, hey, I'm still struggling with the larger full page artwork. I'm right on, man. Which I've got a couple of I need to make for that adventure. Right on, man. Yeah, it's they're bears. If you know that you have a full page, like if you have a full splash page at like at the beginning of a chapter, if that's how you're going to build your document, and kind of the same advice as covers, in that you want to, I recommend finishing them before you actually finish the document. If you know what each chapter is going to be and what you want to have depicted, that way you don't get angry and burn out during the illustration process after the document is done. So that you don't get angry that the production, art production, isn't stopping you from being able to publish your work. The ideas are all done here. Like, these are all complete ideas. It's just I now have to build a way to present them so that they look interesting, they're fun to engage with, and that the illustrations and visual elements that we have involved with it are compelling and worth, bring value. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to grab fonts. So let's go to font color here. I don't remember what font color we used, so let's look at our, there we go. $80. So font colors. Body equals 80. And let's grab this text and let's see what that looks like. 40. Sub header equals 40. That's easy enough. And then let's see what it says about bold. It should still be 80, but just boldened. But let's see what it actually says. Yep, 80 bolded. Cool. So we'll use that as our guiding light, 80. So I'm going to literally just select all. And then font color, more options, custom. There, now the whole document is a little bit more relaxed in its eyes. The background is still white, so we'll want to fade that. I don't think we're at a spot quite yet that we're going to build the background, but that's percolating. So it doesn't have to be aggressive. It just has to be present. I'm actually really being compelled right now to let's see, what is the image size we have. We can safely create an 8.5 by 11 inch background image at 100 dpi, a very low resolution. It doesn't have to be heavy resolution at all for you to be able to have, because they're PDFs. They're not the color versions are not supposed to be. They're not supposed to be printed, but if you do, they'll be good enough that you'll be able to. 4.5 by 5.5. That's awesome. That's 8.5 by 11 at 300 DPI. So that's technically 8.5 by 11 at 150 pixel resolution. It's so funny that I built it that way. But I mean, hey, it looks great. So 8.5 is let's create a new document here real quick. Create, and then let's file, save as. Art, projects, book creation, in command, vehicles, Spelljammer, production. Let's go with page background, image size 150, 8.5, that's our page background. So what we could do, for instance, take this base color. We could go 80 by 80 by 80. That's the font color that we're using, right? So this would literally make all the text disappear on the page. So let's hold on real quick. Let's see how well that lines up. See, literally it's the exact same font color. Like, here's an experiment. Where does that D show up again? There it is. Yep. All right. So that's how that looks, right? So I can't use this as basically as my background color. I'd have to go like 100, 100, 100, something like that. Delete. This isn't what we're doing today. This is just something that I'm doing. I just want to drop in some color here real quick, and then I can take my super font and I can just like smudge this up. I can create a color distortion. Like, I don't know, maybe I can like drop some objects or something, do like a spacely space scene, and have that as my background image for the text. So I don't know what the right answer is going to be there, but that's basically the process that we go through to do it. So I'm going to hit save here real quick and get out of that, because that's not what we're specifically doing here, but we will be doing that. That will be that page dressings is going to be some of the, once we finish all the ship tokens, and we're almost done. We should have the ship tokens done next week. So once the ship tokens are off our plate, all our basic token assets will be done. So that means that will be open for us. The artwork that we're doing on top of the page layouts that we do, we'll be able to do the dressing, the footer, the border, the header, and the background image. We'll be able to build that out into those into these block pictures, right? So I got my dressing, my border here, and I've got my footer down here. And there's not much in the way of headers, but here's a header that we have here. There you go. Anyway, so that's how that sits. We know that's 80. So what we're going to what we need to do next then is, now that we know the body and the sub color, I can go here and I can click X, resolved, and I'm going to go file, save as, book creation in command system. Oops, there's my collaborations in command system. To the vehicles. There it is. Vehicles, Spelljammer, checklist. Do page dressing, checklist. I don't know if this stuff is entertaining or not for people, but I'm just showing you how we build things. So we may or may not, depending on, if anyone gives a crap, it will determine whether or not I continue doing these things on stream, or if I just stick to artwork on stream and do page layouts on my own time off when family's around or whatever. Sip of coffee. It's actually supposed to be here. So font color, no problem. I know the font colors that we want to use now, so I'm actually going to make that 1 and 2. One, two, buckle my shoe. There. So next thing. Whoa, what's going on, buddy? But you know me. Oh, the shift button's locked down. That's why. There you go. All right, so we have that. The next, I'm not going to go through and change all the font colors for the headers yet, because I don't know what the font sizes are going to be for the headers and how they're going to look. So I'm going to hold off on the 40 pixel, the 40-40-40 color conversion for the headers until I'm convinced I know what the headers are supposed to be. But what I have not done is set a timer. So we're going to set a timer here. Jeez, it's almost 10 already. Cheers to that. I'll be on for another hour or so. And then I'll be doing, what do I got going on today? Off stream today. The two things I have on task is some Eberron post-edit revisions for the monsters that are inside the Crystals of Mabar adventure that we've been streaming. And as well as ship token art, which I will be doing some of off stream today. And the underground lab map for Eberron. Those are the three things that I have on my plate to do off stream today after we're done messing around with this page layout stuff here on stream with y'all. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to set the font size that we have going. So currently the body text is using a 11. Roboto is a standard font that shows up in Wizards of the Coast documentation. Like most of the hardbound books use Roboto. It's a pretty neutral font that is easy for like dyslexia and stuff to be able to process well. The image, the outline of the images of the text, it's pretty clean. It's a very sterile, simple, but not overly formal sort of font, so it feels a little friendly. I think it actually goes along with the natural language formatting that they go with 5e really well. I think it's a good font for the natural language that they attempt to present, the tone of voice that they're attempting. So I like that. I think we use Helvetica for these fonts. Oh no, it's Merriweather, which is another font that Wizards of the Coast uses frequently in their headers and subheaders. So we apparently adopted that as well. So all of these Headers, subheaders. That's a subheader. Let's see if we can find something that's... This is such a simple document in comparison to what we're doing right now because it's just classes. So there's not a lot of seeding that happens like these. I think these are robotos. Yeah. And these are all... Those are font 12. This is font 12. There's not a lot that I need to have on each page, so I ended up going with 12-point font to make everything sit easily on the page, and there's lots of visible space. But I think this is going to be a more dense document. I think I'm going to use a smaller font size. I'm just flipping through here real quick. I think down in the invocations and pacts, pact boon section, I think there's some different font size. This book is also 100% preview on the DMsGuild. If you want to look at all this artwork on your own time, just go grab the document. You can take a look at it. If you like the ideas of the artwork, make a purchase. I had a crew of 4 people helping me with this, and it's nice to be able to get them some coin every now and again. Yeah, 12-point font. Pact boons and invocations. There you go. See, we have this fancy sigil. We have this fancy dressing thing and this header for each of the chapters. Pact boons and invocations being one of them. Merryweather. Roboto. Okay, so what size is this? 14 to 12. That's the 2-size font. So once we get down to 14, we're using normal caps Roboto there. 18 is Merryweather. So let's see if there's a breaking point. Roboto 12 matches the 12 here. Oh, but this is this using 80-point font? That's interesting. Let's find out. Yeah, it's using 80. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't think it gets any more deep than this. This is 14? Oh, it's 18. Invocations, pact invocations. Lantern boons. Was that 20? It's 30. Wow, 36. That's a large font. Okay, well, let's start taking some notes here to see how that sits. These aren't necessarily going to match up the same. So we've got body is going to be anywhere from 10 to 12. That could be sub 3. Two sub. This is the hierarchy, the depth of it. Sub, 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 and then you got header. So it's like chapter header. And you got section header, subsection, and sub 2, sub 3. So if we got a chapter header at 36, we could do 12. And then 10. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels of hierarchy. Oh boy. I don't know if I am ready to do this or not, but the next step would be for me to take the entire document and convert all of it into, say, font 10. So the entire document is the same size font. And then I go through and I specifically pick on each one of these to make it the like font size 12, because this is a third hierarchy subsection. Damage threshold would be a 12, right? Cargo and towing limits would be 12. We're not quite there yet. What I need to do is let's go back into here. Let's see, when to all cap versus word cap versus lowercase. Like all capping, like this is all cap, right? While this is just word capping. So there's the size of the subsection, section, chapter, depending on what size of the font is going to help determine whether I want it to be all caps or if I want it to be word caps or no caps, right? So what I have not done yet, we built the manuscript and we built in all these Mutley section titles, but we don't actually have an established anything for these. Like these are all 11-point font right now, and this is an item header, so the item header could realistically be the same size as the font. It's not like a section. Additional equipment is like a section, but it's a subsection because there's equipment, there's helms. So there's spelljamming helms, which is a section of equipment. There's individual equipment items. There's focusing on a helm, which is a topic of conversation, as is dueling pilots, which is different from the actual object title. So you got the object title here, which would probably be the same size font as the actual text itself. So that's probably going to be, say, 10. And then this is its own section, which is that is focusing on helms, dueling pilots. Those are like section 12. If this font is 10, then this would be a 12. And then that would make this spelljamming helm is like a category of stuff, as opposed to additional equipment, which is a category. So 12, so that would mean that sub would be like 18, right? So 18 might be too bulky, but currently it would be 18. That would make equipment itself would be 24. And you got spelljamming equipment and ships, which doesn't necessarily need to be a 36. It could just be a 30. So we might not need that depth. But this is a good example of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers deep. I don't know, the 5th layer being here. I don't know if we have a deeper, if we have more seeded, if we have a deeper seeding than just 5. If 5 is our max seeding, then that gives us a lot of wiggle room on what kind of font sizes we want to use. So right now we're going to go through the process of this. Again, this is making the sausage. It's not necessarily exciting, but right now we're going to go through the process of seeing where our seeding is at. So I'm going to see if there's anything that has a deeper seed than 5. So equipment, ships, helm, other. So the equipment is its own section, and then the ships down below that we're looking at would be its own section inside of the spelljamming equipment and ships chapter. So I guess spelljamming equipment and ships is technically a chapter, which might mean like we want to we might want to do like a quarter like a top page, like a quarter page splash or something like that. So let's go down and let's see if we can find a deeper seeding. Air envelopes. Spelljammer ships. That's 1. Size and occupying space. That still qualifies for occupying size and occupying space. Size occupying space. Ship's property and materials would be a separate section from the size and occupying space. So that's 1, 2, and then we got 3, and then 4, and then 5 is basic text. So that goes 5 deep. Ship properties, that would be subsection 1, 2, this is subsection 3, and then here's 4, and then 5 again. Haven't gotten any deeper than that. These are each subsection, so this would be like font 12, font 12. These would be like font 10, font 12, font 10. Hit points, materials. Yeah. And these would be 12 and 12 and 12. These are part of the same chart, so these would be 10. Additional weight to consider. So that's 12, and this is 10. This additional weight to consider. I should probably title that something different, but that's a subsection. That's a section, so that looks like 12. And then there's pre-generated ships, so we go back up to font size 10. These are inline. This is called inline, and it would be the same size font as the actual text that's being described by the inline, so that would be 10. So that would be like font 18. Yeah, and then we scale out again. So no further depth there. That only goes to a hierarchy of 5. Combat, let's see. So combat is its own section separate from the weapons and ships. Like this would be a chapter header, right? So there would potentially be a quarter pager, some sort of splash something going on here. Combat maps and movement. Like, so we have the, like, if this is a 36-point font, like ship facing and maneuvering, as opposed to, like, say, combat map and maps and movement, I'm gonna have to parse out. But like, this doesn't feel like it'd be like, if this is a 36-point font, this does not feel like a 30-point font. It feels like this might be a 30-point font because there's a lot to talk about as far as combat maps and movement. Facing and maneuvering. Like, facing maneuvering might actually be, like, we might be able to lift that up and drop it into the maps and movement section once we actually get into tactical movement. Like, there might be it might be smart for us to put ship facing and maneuvering inside of the tactical movement section. That's something we're gonna have to look at. So, like, again, but I don't see this expanding beyond five degrees of hierarchy, even if we have to rearrange it a little bit. Ship combat and movement as a subsection kind of makes sense. Range of combat. Range of combat still sits inside of a map space because it's what we're representing there. Maps and scales during combat. That's just a label for this. That's not actually a section. But these are different types of maps that we were talking about. The 5-foot scale, the 50-foot dogfighting, and the 500-foot siege weapon ranged combat. So if this is 10, this is 12, This becomes 14. You can, of course, pause on any of this and look at the text. I can't stop you from doing that. Be welcome to. But again, the whole thing will be 100% preview when it's done. This isn't the final format, so I can't share this directly and still publish it on DMsGuild. So once it's on the DMsGuild, we'll have it 100% free preview for you to be able to view at your leisure and decide if you want to purchase it or not. But all the Light of Zaraxis map assets, the ship tokens, and the creature tokens. And we'll have ship deck plans for the fighter craft as well. That'll all be bundled in. Checking my time here real quick. Should be down to what, like maybe a minute? 2 minutes. Good. So that would be 10. Then this is 12. That makes this 18. $24. And 30. So yeah, we're at 5 still. So I haven't gone 5 steps deeper yet. Let's scan down here and see if we find something that has deeper off-scale movement, maps and scale combat. This off-scale stuff is such a meta idea. Like if you're upscaling your movement speed so that you're moving at a 50-foot scale, then you upscale your speed to 500 to a mile, 10, 100, 1,000 miles squares. The off-scale movement is talking about your actual speed like your speed relative to the map that you're on. If you're scaling the map to match your speed, then each square, like at the 50-foot square scale, your movement is basically in 50-foot increments. But you can off-scale movement so that like you could be moving at a speed of 1,000 miles per square, right? So that 50-foot square, you'd be able to move 100 squares with one step, but that map is going to have obstacles and stuff that you're going to run into. So you have to, depending on what your environment is, depends on what scale of the map is going to be, and inside of that scale, what speed is your ships moving through. And if you're engaging in tactical battle, you always want to scale your map in to match the speed that your ship is engaging other objects and other ships and creatures at. So, which is, again, typically the 550 and 500 foot scale. Anything beyond that, you can't effectively battle something. So anything beyond the 500 foot scale becomes exploration, where you're either in pursuit, chasing, or exploring the environments around you until you sync up, like until you bump into something that's adjacent at the 1 mile scale. Then you can zoom in to the 500 foot scale to be able to start engaging them, which is stuff that we talk about down in the exploration section. So, but maintaining relative distance and pursuits. This is all like 12-point font there. Ship rules is a subsection inside of the combat section. So like if combat were to be a 30-point font, then ship rules would be a 24-point font, which means the ship rule inside of ship rules, the pilot rule would be an 18-point font, which means that we can make pilot checks a 12-point font. Statistics, taking damage for ships, that's all 12-point font. Taking siege damage is a subsection inside of the taking damage. Okay, so let's see. This is inline, so that's 10 points. Pilot options oversees the inline section, so that's a 12 point. 10, 12, 12. $12, 12, 12, 18, 24, so I can have this. Okay, so we saw we saw over here, we got a 12-point font there. This is also 12-point font. It's not inline. It's a section header, but it's not inline. So we see the inline headers here. So this would be like taking siege damage. This would be a section. This would be a subsection header, but it would be the same font size as the text itself. So that's self-reinforcing there. But taking siege damage is a more specific concept as opposed to just taking damage for a ship in general. So it's going to be subbed, but it's only a comment, so it doesn't really warrant having its own size font that would cause this to get bumped up just for this out of line subsection header. So section subheader is the word I'm trying to use. So that's still preserved. We're still looking at a base. I mean, we could technically do a 12-point font, but I'm afraid about how much space that's going to eat up. So we'll look at that. But we know that Siege Commander role is 18-point font, and then damage for Siege Crew and Weapons is 12 points. Command check is 12 points. Rolling command checks with advantage and disadvantage, that would be a 10-point subsection header. Taking command checks, rolling command checks, optional feat, taking damage, 12-point, siege commander options, 12-point, and then we got inline headers, that are all probably going to be 10s. Same setup for the squadron commander. Command checks, 12-point, 18-point, 12-point, 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 inline header, 10-point, 12, 18, that's all established. Blending roles in combat, so it'll be like 18. Blending rolls. Yeah, blending rolls on combat scale. That would be blending rolls is the same hierarchy as each individual roll. Although it could be a subsection. So this could actually goes 18. No, because then that 18 would mean that it would be a subsection of support, which isn't accurate. So this would have to be 18. Which means that this could be 12 weapons and crew. That's going to be the same hierarchy as the ship roll, so that's 24. 18. This could be 12. This goes back to 18, then 12. 18, 12. Grappling. That's 18. Okay, so this might be where we find a deeper seating. So let's see. So this is going to be, say, a 10-point font. Siege grappling weapons. This would be there's grappling weapons, and there's siege grappling weapons, and there's mounted grappling weapons depending on the size. Grappling, the mounting. So we've got, so this could be 10. This could be 12. That would mean that this would be 10. 10. This would be 12, which means that this is 18 grappling weapons. So these are 10s. This is 12. That's 12. And that makes this 18. So that's Rams. Rams at 18. Let's go back to grappling weapons. So you got 10, 12, 18, 10, 10, 12, right. 18. Sorry, I have to do this a few times. 10, 12, 18, 10, 12. Let's go down here to a strat sheet. So we got tentacle, 12, and then we got siege grappling weapons. That would be 12. The tentacle itself is 10. And we got grappling weapons overall. Grappling equals 18. Mounted grappling weapons equals 12. And we got hook and chain equals 10. And we got, then we have the 18 equals, I'm going to do it like this instead, just for organization for this little thing that we're doing. This is literally how I do this. This is how I do this with every book that I've done. So, if this proves to be boring for people, then I won't bother showing you these details. I'll just drop in every now and again just to show you where we're at with the project and like the artwork and stuff. But grinding, this is literally how we grind out the text. So let's go with 10 equals blunt ram. 12 equals rams. Listen, then we have So we go from rams are okay. So in this process, rams and grappling weapons are distinguished. There's the grappling. There's mounted weapons. So mounted weapons are there's mounted versus siege. Mounted weapons are things that can be operated by individual, like one creature, as opposed to siege weapons, which require multiple creatures. Unless, of course, we're talking about a ram, in which case that's something that's mounted to the ship itself. So you have 50 foot and smaller scale, and then you have 50 feet, or then you have larger than 50 feet. That's basically what breaks between mounted weaponry versus siege machinery. Siege machinery are on vehicles that are larger. That affect that are generally at the larger than 50 foot scale, and mounted weaponry is generally things that are too big for you to just carry around two-handed, and like a halberd is an individual weapon. It's 10 some odd feet long, but it's light and maneuverable enough that a medium-sized creature, albeit two-handed, can operate it as though it were a heavy weapon. But it's still an individual weapon. Mounted weapons are so big that a medium-sized creature can't reasonably pick up and run around with it. Like a harpoon flinger is a mounted weapon. They come from Descent into Avernus, and they have a 150-foot range, and they do 2d8 damage when they hit you with a harpoon. They're too big for a medium-sized creature to be able to just pick up and run around with as a crossbow, though a large or huge and larger-sized creature could. But normally characters aren't large size. But that's a fun thing that you can do, is cast enlarge on somebody, give them a harpoon flinger with a giant clip of like 3 foot long harpoons that is tossing, and that would become their large size crossbow. So mounted stuff can be carried by larger or bigger creatures, which is a fun sort of escalation of threat. Like you can have an Umber Hulk that has Umber Hulks are too dumb, but like a giant, for instance, like a fire giant, for instance, could have a harpoon flinger equipped as its weapon that's pop, hitting you with 2d8 damage. Anyway, you can do that. So mounted weapons versus siege weapons. Siege weapons require either multiple characters to be able to load and fire them, like a ballista, or they're mounted, which is they're like a hammer ship is 250 feet long, and it has a blunt ram attached to it. That is a siege ram, as opposed to a spiderling, which is like 30 feet long, and its spider legs are piercing rams, but they're only mounted. They're at the mounted scale because they're smaller than 50 feet. It's like those piercing rams would, like, say, do 2d10 damage, as opposed to a night spider that's 200 feet long, and its legs are spears that do, say, 2d10 times 10 damage. Significantly larger, but they're like 5 feet thick. They're 5 foot thick logs that are basically punching through you. They're going to do stupid amounts of damage, which scales to the damage of ships. So that's the difference there. But the way that we have this currently organized, because rams are the same whether they're on vessels or crafts, it's just a matter of scaling damage. Just a matter of scaling damage. So this kind of combines those two. Okay, so that means, rams at 18 would be appropriate. That's types of rams. And then, types of rams. Rams. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that does organize. And then we have 12 equals types of rams. Siege weapons, grappling weapons 18, rams 18. Okay, that paces. And then we have list of ship melee weapons. So that'd be 24-point font equals list of ship melee weapons. We got scuttling, ram, and grappling. This feels like a 12, 12, 12. And then ship melee weapons overrides. No, ship melee weapons is at the same hierarchy as list of ship melee weapons. So, but is it? 24 equals ship melee weapons. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of hierarchy right now. Ship melee weapons. And we have weapons and crew. targeting, siege damage, mounted, critical hits, ship melee weapons. And then we're back into rolls. So got weapons and crew. Nope. Okay. Back to the list of weapons. Rams. Thank you, Timely Timer. Got some coffee here real quick. I could make that inline. So I could inline that. Shipmently. Sorry, off screen. Let's pull this more in line. 10, 12, 18. And again, these font sizes are still completely arbitrary. Right now, we're really just trying to figure out the depth of hierarchy, and we're just using placeholder font numbers, although these are reasonable font numbers to use in our default document. But there's a significant change in scale from, like, say, 36 to 30 to 24, 18, 12. Like, that may be far too much of a spread. It could more realistically be, like, say, 30, 18, 14, something like that. So we just don't know quite yet. So still parsing this stuff out. So using logic as our weapon. Let's go back up into the roles section real quick. Weapons and crew. Let's go to ship pilot. Ship roles. Roles is inside of combat. So we got what? 36 equals combat. Combat, and then range, combat, size, scale, maps, blah, 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 ship rolls. 30 equals ship rolls. I think this is probably, once we parse this out, I think that's going to pretty much set where we're at with stuff. So, pilot. Pilot check. Options. This could actually probably be smaller. Blah blah blah. Blah blah. Deflect. Make a pilot check with a DC equal to 15 or the attack roll, whichever is higher. Rolling higher turns a hit into a miss. For this instance. Deflect. Ship options. That's pilot options. Taking damage could be a 12. Taking damage for the ship. Taking damage for the ship could be 12. Okay, these all fit inside of it pretty easily. Ship rolls, pilot options. Doesn't need to be that high. Damage, command checks. Manage siege commander options. That could be a 12. 18. 18 is pretty strong though, so we might just keep that. Weapons and crew. Oh, interesting. Weapons and crew. Crew is separate from the role of your character. So you got what your characters can do, and then you got what your weapons and crew can do. So both of those sitting at the 30 font hierarchy here, one step down, that does feel natural. So I think I can keep that. feels right. All right, let's go see if we can find something that has a deeper hierarchy than this. This apparently is the max. And that goes all the way through 36, 30, 24. Ooh, there's grappling weapons. Rams, grappling weapons. List of ship melee weapons, and then it drops down to I'm wondering if describing ship melee weapons and then the list of ship melee weapons. Well, actually, yeah. The way that a lot of role playing books organize stuff is they have the rules about how a thing works, and then as a completely separate chapter, the actual equipment itself. So I think having both ship melee weapons and list of ship melee weapons, I think those should be able to exist at the same hierarchy. I think that's okay. And then we have ranged ship weapons that should be sitting on a 24. So let's drop down here. Take a look at that. I have no idea if this stuff is entertaining or not. Actually, anyone that's out there that's paying attention at this point, if you can drop like into the comments, or if you happen to be listening live in the chat, to let me know if this kind of content is interesting or not, to help me determine if I should be doing more of this, or if I should be having this off screen and just focus on the visuals of the art and design stuff, right? So I can still do page layout stuff. It just won't be me sitting here noshing text, because that may or may not be interesting. So anyone that catches in the future, definitely please do let me know. So now we're under ranged ship weapons, and then we have ship weapon range, ranged ship weapons and crew. Right on, man. Glad to hear it. But I mean, like me parsing every single page out like this. I mean, when the product is published, I'm going to do a full walkthrough of the entire document, page by page, basically a page turner, just like design notes, like Phil's random comments about, let's look at this page and let's listen to Phil ramble about it for 20 minutes and let's go to the next page. Like, that will happen, for your benefit or not. But I can see the value of the me working through the hierarchy stuff here being interesting. But once I figure out that hierarchy, like me parsing through, I don't know. We'll see. Ranged siege weapons and crew. So there's ranged. Okay, so there's ranged ship weapons, and then there it is. Ranged siege weapons. Okay, ranged weapons, and then 18 equals siege weapons and crew. Ranged siege weapon and crew. Got weapon properties. Ranged siege weapon properties, and then side dies like ability scores. HP, etc. That's range siege weapon properties, and then we have 12 equals siege crew properties. Firing and reloading ranged siege weapons. Firing and reloading. Ranged SW. We have modifying reload scores. I love the reload mechanics so much. Commanding multiple ranged siege weapons. So far this is pacing out, but disaster lies around every corner. And then 10 equals reloading. Multiple RSW. Then we have the list of ranged siege weapons. That'll be 18. List of ranged SW. 12 equals. Wow, and it just folds right into it. That's cool. Balliste, Mangonel, etc. Mounted ranged weapons, properties. That's really simple. Mounted RW properties. Cannon, 10 assault cannons, harpoon flingers, harpoon, blah blah blah. Then we have ammunition, and then foraging for ammunition. I love foraging for ammunition. I love that. As you can just find a forest and like just it doesn't take a lot to splinter up a tree to be able to make a bolt that, you know, a ballista bolt to fire, or like if you find a mountainside just to quarry some rock. It only takes basic manual labor for you to be able to gather up materials to do that sort of stuff, and just rudimentary tool usage to be able to to whittle down a log to basically be a massive spear. It just doesn't take a lot. So being able to forage that equipment, to find it and then cut it into place, I don't think I've ever seen anybody discuss that stuff before. So I'm pretty excited about just stuff that we're bringing to the table for like just the little rulings versus rules bits. You know, like you have to have enough rules to be able to create rulings from, and there's so much gap in the 5e Spelljammer books that it's difficult to make those rulings. Which is the complaint that DMs have. Like, when they say that the document is too thin, what they're basically saying is that you have not provided us enough core mechanics for us to be able to create the rulings that you want 5e DMing to be themed around. You aren't giving us the tool set to know how to make rulings, and you aren't providing us enough rules to make those rulings from in a consistent manner, which is the major problem that 5e has. So most of the work that we're trying to do with these books is to create a language that allows DMs to be able to create consistent rulings throughout a campaign and to know where to go to be able to extrapolate new rulings off of the mechanics that we provide, so that everything kind of feeds intuitively into the same basic die mechanics or action economy, so that you can say, yeah, it's reasonable that you would want to do X, Y, or Z, that sort of thing. So without finding specifics, we've found so many specifics that they're just in here, but layering in like little fringe cases, it's easy to be able to extrapolate that information from the rulings that we have in here. If I find a large pocket of things needing rulings, that's an example. That would be an example of where I would then create like a 10-page document or whatever, showcasing those specific rulings. Most supplements that are created on the DM's Guild are going through this are basically going through the same hierarchy effect in the DMG and the player's handbook, and getting to a section as like, is there enough detail about weapons and crew in general that then cascade down from here, like mounted weapons, siege weapons, ranged weapons, melee weapons, and the crew that operate them. Is there enough mechanical depth in the existing WotC books for that topic to be covered, or is there more content at this level of hierarchy that we can produce? There's like 8 different books now on the DM's Guild that talk about different weapon types, different weapon augmentations, all that stuff, and you can grab any of them. They're all surrounding like once the market gets saturated, then there's so many products, then it's just basically you're picking and choosing from multiple projects. What do I like about how they're handling weapons? How do I like how they're handling armor class over here? And a lot of these books are presented as standalone options, like plug-in options that you can go into any of these different levels of hierarchy to be able to pull from. And of course, the way that I build books is I try to take the entire hierarchy system and see how all the mechanics of all the stuff that's in the DMG, for instance, feeds into vehicle combat, for instance, which is what we've done with this document at the largest scale we can possibly find, to then provide more and more self-referencing consistent rulings to be able to dive down super deep into, like, if I have a twig sprite riding on the back of a space guppy, what kind of damage this is going to be able to do to a ship. Then you can start looking at how creatures and mounted combat and scale of creature work in comparison to crafts and vessels, hit point capacity, damage threshold, etc. It all folds into each other. So anyway, this hierarchy process is important for us to be able to break these things down logically like this, so we can see where gaps can appear inside of the hierarchy. So there you go. Anyway, can I say hierarchy? Can I work hierarchy into the sentence anymore? Stay tuned and find out. Like and subscribe, hit the bell, share, and then drop some comments in the chat or in the comments if you're seeing this in the future to talk smack with me. Be welcome. List of mounted weapons, and then we get into ship squadrons. And then once we get into ship squadrons, that takes us out to weapons in combat. Squadrons are a different identity from the roles that your characters perform. They are similar to crew and weapons, but they're the size of a ship. That doesn't mean that they're deserving a larger hierarchy. Its structure in the hierarchy is basically the same. So it would be 30 equals ship squadrons. So that is consistent. 30. Right. So 36 for combat, 30 for ship rolls, Well, now I'm just curious. What font size do we use here? 58. Okay, 58. Not that it matters because it's covered up with the actual, illustration. Shout out to Nathaniel Rue for creating that Spelljammer title font. Let's see. Oh, this is super far down in the higher. Actually, this isn't a bad place to be right now. Traveling between worlds. Sure, let's hang out down here and see how our hierarchy works down here. So far, sections are capping at 30. So this is so far so good. We're on our last 20-minute burst. So I suspect what's going to end up happening here is we're going to resolve what our hierarchies are going to be, which probably means that between now and next Saturday, I'll get the font colors, the headers and subheader font sizes, and the text all resolved. Yeah, since you're seeing how I go through that process, now that you know what the process is, I can probably just safely do it offline and not bore you with the specific details of highlights, change font size, highlight, change font size, highlight, click, make subheading 3 or whatever, I probably don't need to grind you down in the specifics of that because it's just pushing text and basically pressing font alt buttons. So probably don't need to worry about that. But currently we are in traveling between worlds. This is the exploration section of the book. Spellcasting. That'll easily fit inside of a 5-fold. Spellcasting only really has, you've got the inline here, which could be 10 or 12. And then you got the inline here, which is probably all going to end up probably being font size 10, maybe 11. And then you have the 3 subsection header here for first level spells versus cantrips. So this could be 10, cantrips could be 12, notable spells would be 18, 12, 12, 12, 12. Single target effects is 12. Area of effect is 12. Range 12. Modifying amplified spells. That would all fit. These could be 10 and modified could be 12. Amplifiers at 12 makes sense. Spells that affect checks 18. Amplifying spells 18. That puts this amplifier at 12. Modifying amplified at 12. Range at 10. And then inline at 10. Okay, that pans out. Spellcasting is a separate section from combat. Combat's at 36. So 36 equals spellcasting. But it's a large... God, how large is this section anyway? We're on page 41. This will take us down to and through... Got all these spells that are modified by our mechanics. I love it. The entire book, Steal and Strike, Represent. 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Uh, 41 to 49. So that's 8 pages. Okay, that's enough for a section. or a chapter, and then we have, but that's well within fold, so no issues there at all. 36 equals exploration. That is definitely its own chapter. Scaling distance in wild space. Maps scale in wild space. That's how we scale distance. And then encountering objects is a separate section. Let's go with that. Encountering objects. Visibility. Here's our visibility table. Thank you. I'm gonna give myself another 10 minutes. And then I gotta cut out of here. Visibility, and then we have our visibility table for how far away, depending on the size of the object, how examples of those objects, and then how far away on an orrery you can detect them. With your bare eye, how far away can you just notice them, and then with your bare eye, how close do you need to be able to make out details. So, and the DCs for doing each of them, pretty thorough. It's certainly a lot more precise than what the SAIS provides, and I think it's a really good basic tool for people to be able to make use of. So we got visibility, and we got orrery scans, which is, and then void tracking, and closing distance with objects. There's encountering objects, and then what? 18 equals orrery scans. 18. And void tracking is a subsection of that, so that'd be 12 equals void tracking. And then closing distance with objects. That feels like a 24. Closing distance. And then unnoticed encounters feels about the same as closing distance. 24 equals unnoticed encounters. Flotsam, colliding objects. Flotsam doesn't seem like such a large section that it'd be an 18. I could probably just make it flotsam. Safer down here at 12. And then we got colliding objects. Let's see if that pans out. 24 equals colliding objects. Again, these are all things that fit inside of the encountering objects. You got visibility. How far away can you see them? Then you've got, aside from spotting things, you've got, actually closing distance could be 18. Which means that unnoticed encounters can be 18. Let's look at colliding objects and then object hit points. HP of objects and creatures. 18 equals damage from collisions. This is panning out so far. Colliding objects versus visibility. Colliding objects doesn't actually have anything to do with yeah, that's a separate section. Is it completely separate from encountering objects though? No, it's still, I think that still fits inside of the encountering hierarchy. That feels right. Yeah, and then we have traveling the astral sea. Okay, great, we figured that out correctly. damage from collisions. Closing distances. I mean, collisions is kind of a radical form of closing distances between objects. So, I mean... No, it's separate. Unnoticed encounters. Colliding objects is not a subsection of unnoticed encounters, so... Alright, I hear you. We're supposed to be done. Oh no, that was just my normal alarm. That's fun. We still have 5 minutes. Let's see. Colliding objects, 24. Yeah, colliding objects is a separate subsection. Sounds sensible separately from visibility, because whether you see it or not, you still have collision rules. So I'm okay with that. And then traveling the astral sea. That would be... sea, astral flight, tactical movement, travel time, familiarity with travel time in the astral tracking, color pools, all that fits easily within a five stack hierarchy. You got traveling between worlds. We have mapping wild space, 24 equals mapping wild space. Boy, I'm probably going to end up, like, charting out this entire thing. I don't necessarily need to chart out the whole thing. Like, once I get the gist of it, I'll be able to just organically flow through the document and resize it as necessary. But it might be worthwhile actually doing the hierarchy for the entire document. Or at least, like, at this level of depth that we're getting, that we're grokking where we're at with the thing. So... mapping wild space, that's where we left off. And next is scaling maps, which will be definitely smaller than 24. Mapping wild space, and then planetary objects, I think, can sit at planetary objects. That seems like a sensible thing. Planets and moons. 18 equals planets. 18 equals moons. This could actually be 12. Then 18 equals spherical gravity. And then 12 equals traveling within and escaping spherical gravity. We have gravity fields. 18 equals gravity fields. And now we're ship hazards. Fouled air. All this will easily fit in within 5 hierarchy. But our hazards are exploration. Hazards are things that happen to you while you are exploring, separately from actual combat stuff. So that makes sense. It's not. It doesn't feel like it should be its own chapter. It almost feels like it should be its own chapter. Spellcasting is its own chapter. Let's see how long this rambles on for. 61. to 67. And there's creatures in wild space. So 36 would be equipment and ships. Ships. Equipment and ships. Combat. Spellcasting. Exploration. Yeah. Let's make hazards its own thing. Hazards, that's my official timer. Hazards, creatures in space. All this stuff will easily fit inside a 5 hierarchy. And then Appendix 1. Random system generator. System generator we've been putting together that we still have to figure out how we're going to make this thing sit pretty, but here's all the things that we have for integrating our mapping and scaling system with objects to work with a random system generator, so you can just throw some dice and have some fun and making up a little system to screw around with. And then we have converting Light of Zaraxis. It's a 101-page document, and the conversion for Light of Zaraxis starts on page 75. So that means it's a 27-page document for changing all the ship combat that you have in Light of Zaraxis into our command and exploration system scaling. So converting Light of Zaraxis. That's enough to be its own book itself. So, but hey, cool. I think we've figured out our hierarchy here. I'm going to have to monkey around with spacing and how it looks, but that's all the time we have for today. So we're going to be back on... we're signing off for the weekend. We're going to be back on Monday. For now, Light of Zaraxis, or the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book, is going to become our primary focus since we're in page layouts right now. Eberron... Crystals of Mabar will become our primary focus when that gets into layouts. So what I'm trying to do right now, we probably have another month or so before Crystals of Mabar is ready for layouts. So we're about halfway through the book edits right now. It's a pretty heavy lift. So I think what we're going to do is continue picking away in the evenings and downtime at the Eberron maps and tokens. Until all that gets locked down. By the time that gets locked down, we should be ready to go with the Mabar manuscript. Drop that in the layouts. So I want to make sure I get this thing locked down and out of the way before we begin that process. What I want to do is get this done with layouts, get all the tables, charts, etc., all the dressing all built out, so that we are at the point that we're just doing page illustrations. Because once we get to the page illustrations, we just go back to the same process as we've been doing, which is we just jump on stream and we just start making illustrations. But it'll be actual like the Scavernites that we built a month or so ago. Like, I don't know if we're gonna go that deep. Like, that would be like that Scavernite picture would be a great section header for creatures in wild space, for instance. So like we could have like a third page for creatures, hazards, exploration, spell casting, combat, and equipment. Like we could do like a and appendices generally don't have chapter headers, chapter illustrations, so we won't worry about that. creatures in wild space. Let's go grab that real quick, and then we'll make this our last thing. Open. I'm hoping to open up this document. Astral Lancers. There we go. So let's do this real quick, right? Wow. To show you guys what I'm talking about here real quick. There. Centered up, you'd have that there. And you'd have this like that. We could do something like let's see if I'm right. Doesn't look like I am, but we'll see. Ooh, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, actually fits really, really well. It's like this would be how we could do a page layout. Like I don't have to do 2 columns on every single page if I don't want to, but this being 2 columns might actually work out. Like I might decide to have this header space here talking about many of the creatures in Boo's Astral Menagerie. Bam, are native to wild space. Additional abilities for these creatures. To hunt and migrate between worlds are provided below. And we have the unnatural natures, explaining how that works, and then distant travel. Like if you have the unnatural nature feature, if you're a wild space creature, here's things that you just get to make it so that you can operate in wild space. So we could just leave this like this, or we could do a 2-column thing. But like that's a decent image, page that we would have for this. And that is what, at 11-point font? Yeah, it's 11-point font. So it actually sits really, really nicely on the page. It's not bad. I could potentially reduce this down to 10-point font, and it would be more like if I drop this to 10-point, it would probably end up sitting something like probably like that. That's probably how it ended up sitting. But regardless, I mean, that's a legit page. So I could realistically have a piece of art like this as the header image for each thing that we do. So anyway, that's the thought process. Once we finish up the document, this will be a PDF, an individual page PDF that we would drop into the document to make sure that we have the scatter art lined up properly with the dressing that we have at the top of the page and along the borders, and then the footer. We'll have all that lined up. Like, we can nudge these things around on the page as we need to make it sit proper. So we have like the proper border at the top for the creatures in wild space. We'll use a different font there, all the bloody blah. But that's the beginning of the process. So when we actually do artwork, like if we have a page spot here that we're going to drop an image into, like say instead of creatures, it would be like the combat section. Then we'll have combat at the top of the page here, and then we'd have this block of space that we could create an image inside of, and whatever that is. So it looks like we've just built ourselves a work order for equipment, combat, spellcasting, exploration, and hazards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like we got 6 images that we need to, 6 half pages that we're going to have to make. So that is now on our docket of tasks. So once the ship tokens are done and the layouts are done, we can start building those assets, and we can start integrating them into here. Or if I'm inspired, I can do that sooner, depending on how it goes. And then similarly, when we find spaces crop up inside the document, then we can, affect them accordingly. So anyway, that's it for the day. I'm out of time. On Monday, we're going to continue ship token production until that is done. Monday night, we're going to be back on with Eberron, Underground Fortress, cartography, and we'll make page layouts a focus of either maybe doing that in the morning sometimes, or I don't know, whatever. We'll figure it all out. But starting Monday morning, again, we'll be back with Spelljammer. That'll be our primary focus while we continue digging through page layouts. So anyway, like, subscribe, check out some of the books I have down below. They're all 100% free preview. If you like them, consider making a purchase to support the amount of work that's going to go into producing these things. And I'll see you guys on Monday. Thanks a lot for being here. Later.